Hi, so in this video I'm going to be talking about some of the basics of stretching. This is going to be getting into some of the stretches that we should be doing before exercise, after exercise, and even some of the things that you can be doing on days where you're not exercising as well to help speed up recovery. And when I say recovery, that can either be recovery from a certain potential injury or a certain problem you're having, or whether it's a recovery from an exercise you're doing because you want to do more and you want to gain more performance. So we'll start first with the things that you should be doing before exercise. So based on what I've read in the research and what I've been told, at least when I was going through university, is that this idea we have of what we call static stretches, or the stretches, say, when you're holding a position, say someone holds an arm across like this, that doing this before you're going to exercise could actually be potentially detrimental to your exercise and could leave you more likely to getting an injury. Now the reason for this is because when we do these kind of stretches, yes, it's increasing some of the mobility so you can go and do the exercise, but by having a prolonged stretch, what it's doing is telling your nervous system, specifically your parasympathetic nervous system, to start to activate. And your sympathetic nervous system is the other part which tells things that needs to go and you need to be activated when you're going to be, say, more active, you're going to be more aggressive, something like that. So essentially the nervous system has these two parts, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is kind of like an accelerator, it speeds up your heart rate, it tells you to go, it opens up your blood vessels, it's what we need before we exercise. However, the parasympathetic is for resting, digesting, relaxing. It's all the things which are really helpful when we're going to be healing. But if you're about to exercise, that's not where you want the body to be. You want the body to be alert. You want the body to be ready to go. So before you exercise, instead of doing something like that where you're holding the stretch and activating that parasympathetic nervous system, you want to do something which is going to activate the sympathetic nervous system. So the kind of movements you should be doing before exercise are ones where you're continually moving. So say if someone is doing, say, a movement, say they're stretching across from here, they should not hold, instead they would, say, bring their arm across or something else. Say if you're going to be working, say, your legs, maybe you're going to be doing a gym exercise, maybe you're going to be going for a run or for a cycle, it would be doing active movements of your legs, maybe doing some, some walking, doing a little bit of light jogging, maybe even doing some high kicks. But doing these things where you're keeping the body moving, so you're getting the joints moving, getting the blood flowing, but you're not activating the body and telling it that it needs to calm down, because that's when you're more likely to get an injury, because all those muscles you need to be slightly tense so that you can do the exercise are now going to be relaxed, and they're more likely to maybe not be in the right position or to spasm when you get into your exercise. So some of the things that can be very good to do before going in to do some exercise is some active yoga movements. So this would not be yoga movements where, again, you're, say, doing, maybe it's a downward facing dog or an up dog or something where you're stretching, but really doing some of those those more active movements where you're going through them through part by part by part. Even things like Tai Chi could also be very good movements to do. And if you're working, say, if you're going to the gym and you're going to be working a lot of your upper body, again, even doing things that, say, swinging the arms, taking whatever exercise you're going to do and doing it at a very light level, that can all be very beneficial. One of the other addendums we can add to this is mobilization work. It's something I'll explain more in another video, but some level of mobilization can be done before certain types of exercise. So this would be especially things where you need a lot of flexibility, such as if you're going to be doing, say, very heavy weights, like doing squats, doing things like deadlifts, anything where you're going to need that mobility. But need to make sure, again, for them, they have an active component to them as well. So it's not just about, say, stretching out, say, a particular joint, but making sure you're actively moving in those stretching activities. So that will be what you want to do before. During, you should not be doing any exercise. You're not doing any stretching during exercise because, again, it's conversely telling your body one thing and the other. It's like holding down an accelerator, holding down on the brake pedal at the same time. It's not going to be very good. And then afterwards, when you finish your exercise, this is where you should bring in some of those more static stretches we talked about. So these are the ones where you're going to be, say, holding a position of whatever muscle group you've been using. What I would say is, as a general thing, if you've been working a particular muscle group in your exercises, then that's what you should be stretching the most. So as an example, you've been for a run, maybe you've been doing some legs in the gym, then stretch your legs, you stretch your glutes, you stretch all around your calves, your ankles. These are the areas that need to stretch the most because they've been used the most. The same thing if you were maybe going rowing, or maybe you were doing something with a lot of upper body, then you need to stretch those body parts you've been working especially more than the others. I would say not stretching too much of the back, even though it's something a lot of people do, but making sure they're really working through some of the other areas. Say whether you're working through your shoulders and your traps, whether you're working through parts of your arms, especially if you've been working anything to do with your chest, you should always be stretching that after exercise. And in terms of the timing, for those stretches, make sure you're doing both sides, even if you've only been working one side predominantly more than the other, such as with a racket sport. But make sure you stretch both sides, and for each of those static stretches, whatever they may be, hold them for at least 2 minutes. Now in up to 30 seconds, some of the research does show there is improvements. However, the longer you're holding there, really this is helping some of those muscle fibers to stretch out more and to help them realign better so that you will recover better. And this will also help your general mobility and flexibility going forward in the future. And people who are more flexible will be able to keep their strength more into the future because they have longer muscles and longer muscle bellies to make sure they can actually use as much of their power as possible. So making sure, again, you're doing both those parts. And when you're doing this after exercise as well, one thing I would say is if you do have certain areas where you know that you are tighter, say if you have an office job and you spend a lot of time sitting, even if you've been working your upper chest and your upper body in the gym, make sure you're working some of the stretches in for your lower body as well. Making sure that you're working on the areas which may be a bit of a deficit for you overall so that you will be able to then improve that going forward. Because for some people, especially if you're sitting at a desk job, say I'm sitting at my desk right now, and a lot of people are going to be curling forward, that's going to shorten the chest muscles. So even if you're not working a lot of chest that day, it might be a good idea to try and stretch that out on a more regular basis when you are exercising as part of an overall stretching routine. So these are some of the main things I would say going forward in terms of stretching. I know it can be a lot to do, but to make sure that you're getting the best recovery possible and you're actually going to get it as strong as possible and of course preventing problems like pain, stretching is a great thing you should do and something that can help to prevent any unneeded trips, whether it's to doctors, chiropractors, physiotherapists or anybody else, as well as improving your overall general health. If anyone has any questions, you can put them into the comments. You can give us a call on 84389550 or email help@vitalitychiropracticcentres.com and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.